It's been a long time coming, but today's video is dedicated to the reveal of the Rave SLR, the secret bike that I've been riding for the last few weeks. And it's right here, in its natural habitat in the UK, a muddy field, because we ain't got any gravel. Well, except for that part of it there. Roll the intro. I mean, maybe I should have done this at the start before I got it all covered in mud, but here you go, the new Rave SLR. A brand new all-road and gravel bike from Wilier. Of course, a quick disclaimer, they are a sponsor of this channel and they've lent me this one after lending it to other ambassador Caroline for a few weeks. So this is her setup. I'm getting my own one tomorrow and I'm gonna do a whole separate video on that. Keep them separate, otherwise it's gonna get confusing. So this version right here is actually a prototype. You can see it says Innovation Lab on the fork, which is the little lab they have in the Italian factory where they test out new bikes. So there are some differences between this one and the final release model, which you'll see on this channel tomorrow. This is a size medium frame set, just in black, because all the Innovation Lab bikes they just do in black before they choose the final paint schemes for the release models. Now the idea behind this bike is that you can set it up in two different ways, either road or gravel. So the geometry of the frame is actually quite close to the Zero SLR and Volante. It's very slightly higher stack and very slightly shorter. The geometry is much closer to the racing road bikes than it is the gravel bikes that Wilier have previously made, which are a bit more adventure oriented. This one is set up with GRX Di2, so that's 800. Forgive me, I don't know the numbering system off the top of my head. They also supply the bike with other brands' gravel group sets as well, and road group sets if you're going to be using it mainly on the road. Which group set you choose will generally dictate which handlebar you get. And I'm going to save going into detail about the handlebars until tomorrow's video, where I'll have an example. Currently this one, Caroline has set up with a stemmer and bara, which are both made by Wilier in collaboration with Ritchie. Stem's a bit too long for me, bars are a bit too wide for me, but I love the GRX levers. Caroline was running this with a Selle Italia SLR saddle. That's the one without a cutout in. I would prefer a saddle with a cutout personally, so I'll be changing it when I get mine tomorrow. This Innovation Lab one has a bottle cage mount on the top tube, which I don't think will be available on the final release. For this morning's little ride around the fields, I've set it up with 34mm Hutchinson Tyres. These are cyclocross tyres. Quite narrow considering you can fit a 42mm tyre in this frame, or that's what they quote. From my experience, bike brands are usually quite safe with their quoted tolerances in terms of tyres, so you can probably fit a little bit more than a 42mm in there, and if you're running 650Bs, which there's no reason why you can't, you can fit even fatter tyres on as well. It's a really sloppy morning this morning, quite muddy, and I've been well impressed by how well these tyres perform considering how skinny they are. Because they've got big knobbles on, they really have been cutting through the mud and giving me a lot of grip. I've like only nearly fallen off about 3 times. Obviously disc brakes, because GRX, everything is disc brake now, they're working really well. And they are attached to a set of Willier's own branded wheels, which are made in collaboration with Miche. These are 42mm, super wide, specific for off-road stuff. Perhaps because of the width of the wheel, these 34mm tyres are actually sitting slightly wider than they would be on a normal set of wheels, but seeing as rim profiles are getting wider and wider anyway, this is probably quite a good test for what you guys might experience if you're buying standard components. Chain set is a double. I've never actually tried a 1x gravel group set before, and I really want to. Unfortunately, this one came with exactly the same as I've got already, but fantastic range of gears. I kind of wish I had this on my road bike, to be honest. Now I'm not racing anymore. Combined with a lovely 1132 on the back. GRX derailleur has a clutch in it, which is technology borrowed from the mountain bike group sets. Really, really useful, stops your chain slapping about. And there you have it. I'm more out of breath talking about it than I am riding it. Now, I'm gonna ride this home, clean it, set it up a slightly different way, just to show you what's possible and how it looks when you got it set up as a road bike. Because if you're only gonna have one bike, this might be the one. Right, where am I? Oh, one last note, you might have noticed my Tubeless valve sticking out there. That's a temporary thing. I'd usually be running tubeless on a bike like this, but because it's going back to Italy soon, I didn't want to set up tubeless and then have to unset it up and use up sealant and all that. But to be honest, it actually rides really nice with these in. I think probably high risk of pinch puncturing though, especially if you want to run lower pressures. Whoa, whoa. So I think it's fair to say, looking at that bike set up with road wheels, that it doesn't look wrong. It doesn't look out of place. That is a decent looking road bike, and a decent handling one too. It really does feel fantastic to ride, and apparently they're using exactly the same carbon layup as in the Zero, the blue one up there. The most noticeable difference, and the thing that you have to have on a gravel bike, is the clearances. So the gap between the frame and the wheel here has to be big enough to fit in a high volume tyre. When you put a road tyre in, the gap is quite obvious. It's the same on the back here as well. You can see there's a bit of a hole, and that probably won't be as aerodynamically fast as a nice tight clearance on a dedicated road bike. Having said that, does it really matter? It all depends on the kind of riding you're doing. I think it's fair to say most consumers are going to be absolutely fine and over the moon with the performance of a bike like this. And it's so versatile. I kind of like the minimalist idea of having one bike and just wheels to switch between them. Especially if, like we did until recently, lived in a very small London flat and space was an issue. That kind of bike would be perfect. Tomorrow's video's turned up. No sneak peeks. I'm sorry. Moderately relieved that that bike did actually turn up today. I was a little bit nervous because Brexit has been causing some problems between the Italian factory and here, but it's all good. I've put it together, ready for tomorrow's upload, and I now have a bike to ride in Spain. I hope you enjoyed the quick look at the Rave SLR. Thank you as always for watching. Any questions, please put them in the comment section down below. If you've got any questions specifically for the guys at Wilier, obviously I'm in contact with them so I can get some inside information. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon.